When it comes to the fabrication of an indirect restoration, it is typically going to consist of 2 appointments. There are going to be exceptions because there are some offices that utilize a CAD/CAM system and they're able to fabricate indirect restorations in office as the patient is waiting. But typically it's 2 appointments. The first appointment is consisting of the prep appointment, which is where all the work is done to help prepare the tooth to accommodate something to fit over the top of it. The second appointment is going to consist of the delivery. This is where the crown or the indirect restoration is back from the lab, it's been made, and we are then going to cement it or bond it into place. I did want to kind of take you through what those steps look like for that prep appointment and what is going to take place in that appointment. Again, depending on the office, it typically took us an hour and 15, an hour and a half, depending on how many crowns or bridges we were going to be doing. But typically an hour and a half to an hour and 15 minutes was the amount of time needed for that prep appointment, with the delivery appointment usually being about 30 minutes. So as this video is playing, it's going to walk you through the steps for that initial prep appointment, what's going to be taking place. I will be making comments just to give you a better idea as to what is going on. And also with this video, they're doing it in a couple of different steps. Where normally we would do it in 1, they're doing it in 2. So they're actually taking 2 separate sets of impressions. One is going to be used to make the temporary or provisional crown, and the other one is going to be used to for the final impression, where they're actually going to fabricate the, in this case, the crown or crowns from that final impression. So I did want to stop this video here. There's going to be a few different ways that the preliminary impression can be taken. This is a machine that can be used. What you saw in the picture prior to was the cartridge system that it uses. You load the cartridge into this machine, you press a button, and it does it all for you. It can also be done using a cartridge and an extruder gun, which is something you're going to have to do manually. And same thing, it works the same way in that the tip is designed in the same manner to where the tip of it is going to be somewhat of a swirl. And what that does is in the cartridge there's a plunger, and when it's loaded into the extruder gun and you press the trigger, then it pushes that plunger deeper into the cartridge, which then forces the material out into the tip. And because the tip in the inside has kind of a swirl pattern to it, what it does is it mixes the material as it's coming out of the extruder gun or the cartridge. With either type that you're using, whether you're using this machine or you're using the extruder gun, you always want to make sure that you're going to be dispensing a little bit of material ahead of time before you start loading your tray. What that does is that ensures that your material is mixed. So what you do is you take a piece of gauze, you take a paper towel, you could put it onto the tray cover, whatever it is, but just dispense a little bit out of the tip first before you start placing it into your gun or into your tray to ensure that the material has been mixed appropriately, because if it's not mixed, then the material is not going to set up. What she is using, or this dental assistant is using here, is what's called a triple tray. A triple tray can be used, it has a mesh in between, and what's nice about this triple tray, as you'll find out here in a minute, is it's going to take the impression of both the upper and lower teeth at the same time. So that can be sent off to the lab, and then the crown or restoration be fabricated from there, but they're able to pour up both ends and also get the opposer on top of it. Like I mentioned, this video is showing you in 2 different steps. So this, what he or she is loading into the tray, is going to be used to create the impression. You want the patient to bite firmly. It takes a few minutes to set up. Once it's set up, it's like a rubbery material, which is why we use this. This would be considered more of a polyvinyl siloxane type of material, in that it doesn't distort. So I can poke it, I can submerge it under water, I can disinfect it with my my cabbage spray or whatever it is that I'm using to disinfect it, and it's not going to distort. Here they're doing a bite registration with similar material. The bite registration is used to articulate the models together when they're poured to see how the patient occludes or bites together. So when they create the restoration, they're able to make sure that it's not going to be too high. And in this case, what they're doing is they're actually removing some old crowns, and they're going to refine the prep a little bit more. So you're going to see some things flying off here. So here they're using an instrument to separate the restoration, old restoration from the tooth. Here they are packing cord, and again the purpose of retraction cord is to just temporarily displace that gingiva around the gingival sulcus. Again, we want to ensure that as the material is being put into there, it creates a very accurate impression and captures all of that anatomy that is going to be needed to fabricate a good fitting crown. Retraction cord stays in for 5 to 7 minutes. So here they're going to start the process. The teeth have been prepped. What they're going to do is then take the final impression. So the final impression we take, usually the preliminary impression is taken using heavy bodied material, and the heavy body material is going to be a lot thicker. We then use the light body material for the final impression. As you're going to see here in a minute, it's going to be dispensed into some sort of a syringe. It's then going to be placed into, the dentist is going to place that around the tooth, making sure to have that material kind of flow, and it's a light bodied material, and it's going to be a lot thinner, so it's going to allow to spread and over that anatomy of that tooth much easier than if they were to use a heavy body, which is why they use it. And then they dispense a little bit of that tissue or that material as well onto the tray before they take the final impression. So prior to this prior to the final impression, the retraction cord is removed and the final impression is taken.
Do your thing.
Again, she's dispensing it to ensure that it's going to mix properly.
Now, I'm zoomed in pretty tight here, so yeah, just keep it right where in that little square. Very good. Right. Then turn it to where I can see. All right, good. Angle it this way.
What do you mean?
Like this. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, good. And out. Keep it low to the ground. Good. Put the plunger in it. Don't lift it up too high. That's awesome. And sideways. That's excellent. Good. And then kind of just, yeah, good. And now bend the thing.
retraction cord has been removed, and the dentist is now placing the material, the light-bodied material, for the final impression. Notice the use of dry angles in here. Again, we want to ensure that the area remains dry. We don't want to get any moisture in there that can interfere with the final impression. We want it to be as accurately as possible. Here she's using a full arch tray for the lower with the heavy bodied material. She's loading the tray, which will be used to take the final impression. So this is done in a two-step. You could use the impression that was taken before to also do that and make the temporary. So that shows you the final impression. They're going to do another bite registration with the teeth prepped. And this time they're doing a full arch bite registration. What they'll do is they'll then take, the assistant will take a impression of the opposer, which would be the maxillary, since they're doing it on the mandibular. That gets done in alginate, and then it gets poured up in stone, which gets sent to the lab along with the final impression. So here they're going to be making the temporary crown from that initial triple tray impression that they took. This is going to be using an acrylic type of material, and this is going to be a little bit more of a custom type of provisional or temporary.
Okay, good. Good. Yeah, just go all around the edges first.
You want to make sure there's enough material dispensed that as you seat the tray, some of it's going to flow out to ensure that you're going to get everything that you need. So they're just removing all the excess material off of there and then removing the temporary crowns. Sometimes the temporary crowns will come out in the impression, and sometimes they'll stay onto the teeth. So here the dentist is making some adjustments to it. What's used in the preparation of the teeth is going to be a high-speed handpiece with the diamond burrs, because remember, diamond burrs are going to be more abrasive, which is going to allow for a lot more tooth structure to be removed. In this case, rather than separating the crowns since they were right next to each other, the dentist decided to leave them connected, which is going to make them a little bit more stable than if he were to have separated them and done them separately. So temporary cement has been placed in there once the adjustments are made, and the excess cement that has squirted out is going to be removed. And in this case, they're going to be light curing it on, just to again give it a little bit more strength and stability. Because you do want those temporary crowns or provisional crowns to stay on there for the amount of time until the permanent restorations are going to be delivered. Again, flossing to make sure there's no cement that's stuck in there. You don't want it to irritate the teeth or the gum tissue. And again, there is the opposer that they're going to be taking. It can be done using alginate. In this case, it looks like they're using the PVS, vinyl siloxane material. So that is, sorry, that is how a crown, or crowns in this case, gets made. Those are kind of the steps or the process that it goes through. You can see that the dentist stopped a lot of times to make sure that the preps looked okay. Again, we want to make sure that as they're preparing the tooth that he or she is removing enough tooth structure to accommodate, depending on the type of material they're going to be constructing the crowns out of or fabricating the crowns out of. They need to ensure that they're removing enough tooth structure to accommodate that. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and I hope you have a better understanding of the whole process for a crown prep.